Stitching Buddhas is a meditation with needle and thread. It's a process of familiarization with the qualities of our highest potential. The spiritual practices these images support are exercises of stepping into the character of enlightenment, of habituating ourselves with its qualities until ultimately we recognize those qualities as our own. Thangkas are guides for these practices. Most thangkas are painted, but the kind I make is part of a long and much rarer tradition of textile thangkas. Beginning with embroidery and tapestry, the tradition evolved into piecing and applique in Tibet around the 14th or 15th century. These fabric thangkas have always been considered especially precious, both because of the valuable silk and gold materials they're made of, and because of the extraordinary amount of time it takes to complete them. It takes me several months to make just one small thangka. All thangkas, no matter how they're made, are supports for the process of self-transformation. And they can serve as inspiration for anyone who aspires to grow their heart and mind, especially for someone who feels a connection with the Buddha's teachings and wants a visual reminder of their highest aspirations in their living space. I especially love working on commission because it gives me a clear focus for the positive energy of my work. I talk with patrons about the qualities that they want to evoke and encourage in their lives, and then we use that insight to select a divine form that best embodies those qualities for them. Then I keep the person who will ultimately live with the thangka in mind as I stitch, directing my intention to support theirs. The type of thangka I make is often called applique, and Tibetans themselves have come to use that word when speaking English. But technically, it's not really applique, because there's no backing cloth to which pieces are applied. There's no single ground on which everything rests. Instead, each separately outlined piece depends on its neighbors for support. It's a patchwork of interlocking, overlapping pieces of silk held together by their connections, just as we are. The outlines are silk-wrapped horsehair cords, and this is a uniquely Tibetan technique. I wrap strands of horsehair with silk thread by hand to create a colored piping, and then couch these silk-wrapped cords to the fabric. I learned this art in Dharamsala, India, a place where I felt deeply at home. Working as an economic development volunteer there, while studying Buddhism, I went to visit Tibetan handicraft centers. One day, I walked into a workshop where a Garuda image was being made out of silk. It stopped me in my tracks. The room went silent for me. I felt like all the threads of my life came together in that work. My love of colors, my interest in quilting and putting pieces together, meditating, trying to be a better person, working in community. And it had a spiritual depth that I couldn't quite fathom, like a poem or a song whose depth you feel even when you don't understand all the metaphors. I was incredibly fortunate after that to be accepted into Rinchen-Wongmo's workshop. It's very unusual for Westerners to find a place in traditional workshops, but Rinchen-Wongmo somehow saw my seriousness before even I knew it was there. He accepted me as an apprentice immediately, and I worked with him 6 days a week for 4 years, helping to make large thangkas for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for Sogyal Rinpoche, and for monasteries all around India. After I finished my apprenticeship, His Holiness the Dalai Lama suggested that I use these traditional techniques in service of what inspires people in my culture, even if that's not specifically Buddhist. One of the literal roots of the Tibetan word for meditate is to familiarize or habituate. Stitching a thangka, for me, is a profound process of familiarization with the qualities of enlightened mind and with the imagery that many enlightened masters have used to realize it. This is imagery that embodies my deepest aspirations to be awake, loving, compassionate, and fully alive in this moment. In a sense, every stitch I make is a step along that path and an offering of the best I have to give in that moment.